I can't have a disembodied voice giggling, Randy.
It's a,
Get it under control. Version 12 could be the silver bullet, or it could be just a regular bullet. They're both pretty deadly. I think we could figure out a few things about what's going on and maybe learn to not stress out so much about it. But we'll have a discussion about that. I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla weekend. I am joined, as I sometimes am, by my crazy good friend, Randy Kirk. We don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but that's okay. The disagreement is what makes it interesting.
I'll try to get higher than you so we're not eye to eye because, that's we, no, that's
Nothing weird or crazy about that at
no,
all.
nothing.
That's why folks tune in. So we've seen some beta version 12 videos coming out
Multiple.
that look quite promising. But you'll notice that it's still very limited in the rollout. Some of the usual suspects haven't gotten it. It doesn't appear Chuck Cook has received it yet. And we know that Chuck Cook gets early builds because we know the engineers watch his videos. And at one point, the engineers even said to Chuck, hey, could you do me a favor? Could you leave Sentry mode on or something on so that we can download your footage each night? And he was like, oh my. Yes, happy to help. So version 12 isn't done. Omar has been, from Holmar's catalog, has been showing some truly amazing videos. Some ones door to door, zero intervention, zero disengagement. Some of them have interventions where he'll tap the accelerator. That's not as big of a concern. And then I get people pushing back to me saying, Brian, it's done. You don't understand. And I would argue that that's not necessarily the case because his version 11 worked flawlessly too. The difference between his videos of version 11 and 12 are very, very small. And in places that aren't where he lives, that aren't on videos that he's choosing to upload, do not reflect the same kind of robust. His version 11 videos did not jive with my experience in the real world.
Yes, that would be true for us as well.
Yes. If I had recorded every single drive I did over those first 90 days when I had FST, I completed a grand total of one drive without an intervention. Mm-hmm. Tells me there's room to grow. That's okay. And I would argue that Omar is not necessarily being dishonest, but he's just painting a picture that's a bit rosier than it should be. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think that what we have here is we have a completely new build. This is in every way, shape, and form as if it was the first time 6 years ago. Even all of the experience that they've had with the previous builds, and I certainly am no AI expert. Wouldn't be able to code my way out of a paper bag. There is nothing that I know about this world. I have done website back end stuff. I know a few coding, but really I don't know anything about it. I'm trying to do this from the standpoint of an outsider who's watching all of this take place. And this is a completely new approach. And therefore, there's going to be a lot of unknown unknowns. And I think that's what they're experiencing now. So you have, whether it's Omar's or, whether it's Omar, whether it's people around the country that they have that are driving this for them, you forget about their employee, not you, the great you, the wide you. Forget that there is, I think, is it 5,000 employees driving it? Is that the number?
I thought it was more like 15.
15,000. Yeah, 15,000 employees just driving it in their normal day. In addition to, I think they still have some dedicated drivers that are driving it like 8 hours a day. So there's a lot of information coming in, a lot of data coming in. They know whether this thing's ready to go or not. And I don't think they want to put it out until it is really, really, really good. I mean, this close to being able to turn off the beta.
So we'd long heard Elon say 12 will not be beta, 12 will be the real deal. I feel like we heard that about 7 and 8 as well. It is reasonably clear to me that Elon may not understand the full scope of the challenges remaining. And I think part of the problem with that is the engineers have worked very hard to make sure that FSD beta works in the places where Elon commutes, and that paints for him an inaccurate picture of the obstacles remaining. I think that's unfortunate. Omar was asked, why, if it's so good, why don't we have it? And I asked that question on X as well, but he has more reach than I do. So he got a better answer. He gave a better answer. The answer he gave was, as good as it is, it's not done. There are still challenges that remain even here in my market. So that means he's not uploading everything. He's not sharing all of the different drives that may not reflect as well as others. I would call that an incomplete picture. But at the end of the day, he has his motivations, and the pursuit of those motivations has treated him very well. So I would be pretty petty to criticize someone for being more successful than me by taking a different approach.
So I don't know what Omar's motivations are. I wouldn't pretend to know. And whether or not he's actually had interventions on other drives that he chose not to upload, maybe those interventions were edge cases and would not have really benefited anybody to other than Tesla to become aware of. Maybe he's seeing that on the day in and day out, everything works pretty well. I mean, we're talking about curb to curb, parking lot to parking lot, on video.
In challenging environments.
In challenging environments. My number one challenge, I think I've said it on your channel before. My number one is going through pedestrians at a very busy pedestrian intersection where people are ignoring or almost ignoring the lights, ignoring the don't walk signal. We have that in downtown LA. You can go there, and if you go down during rush hour, you have hundreds of people sometimes crossing in each direction, and they're not necessarily paying attention and trying to make a right turn where you've got to go through your own crosswalk and then go through the crosswalk and into the street you're turning onto when people are just going every which way. I think this is the biggest challenge I can imagine in a U.S. market, not in Taipei, which has got a whole nother story, not in Rome, which is the hardest city I've ever driven in, not in New York City, which is almost as hard as those two. So in LA, at least, that's the hardest thing I can imagine. Well, Omar has shown some really heavy duty pedestrian situations where the car has shockingly been able to just edge its way forward like a human would and make its way through a sea of pedestrians. It's pretty impressive.
It is. I would point out that, and we talked about this on your show, 8, 10, 12 years ago, Google showed their demo of a self-driving car, and it appeared to be a year from mass production, maybe 2 years from mass. We just got a few things to iron out. And here we are a decade later, and it's still geofenced to 2, 3 cities, and it won't go on the highway. And Cruise, who appeared to be just as good as Waymo, we now had an army of remote Sherpas guiding the vehicles while we get that last few nines. My friend, the nines are infinite. There's a little line over the last one. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's going to be, the challenge is monumental. The task is something that's never been achieved before. And I don't know when it will happen. My confidence in 2016 was quite high, as it was for everyone in the industry and many people outside of it. And each year my confidence erodes a bit because we're just struggling to grasp it. The fact that Omar said version 12 is not ready tells me he has had enough disengagements or edge cases to lead him to say that with confidence. And to the people saying, yes, but forget that, version 12 is the silver bullet, I would say his videos of version 11 were so good that I thought that was the silver bullet until I had an opportunity to drive it myself.
Well, again, Brian, everybody's talked about this, but let's just say it again. we have three levels, three things that need to be solved, maybe four. Number one, you got to solve just the idea that you can't just have no interventions. You also can't have any pushing the accelerator. I mean, it's got to drive itself. You have to be able to play your video game, read the paper. Oh, read the paper. Boy, am I old. Okay, you need to be able to do other work, enjoy the scenery, and not have to worry about the fact that the car is now blocking traffic because it's not turning right. All that's got to go away. It's got to be 90, like you point out, 99 point, maybe two nines just for normal traffic so that people are not yelling at you and coming up and threatening your children. So got to get to that level. Then you've got the next level, of course, is the safety level in edge case after edge case after edge case. That's obvious. Now you've got the grandma issue, and I know that that could be sexist, it could be ageist, and it could be in every way a horrible thing to say, but I didn't invent it. Everybody's calling it the grandma case. And the grandma case, because I'm married to one, is she's got to be comfortable. It can't just be a 17-year-old who doesn't believe he'll ever die. It has to be grandma who says, oh, this is a comfortable ride. I feel completely safe and everything's wonderful. That's a completely different level. And then finally, you've got the legal. It's got to be a situation where you can say, I'm taking over the responsibility. I'm taking the risk. So those are four very different things that it has to accomplish.
And all of those are valid. On the first one where you're saying it has to be genuinely 100% self-driving, this has to include those who are incapable of driving and no drivers at all. An empty vehicle, we may need to deliver it. We may need to send it to pick someone up. It has to not get stuck. And that is a big, big problem. But the legal one, I think, is a more interesting challenge because I don't have to take your word for it. Are you going to cover the bill or not? And I would say, again, my complaint, I know I get a lot of pushback when I say vision parking doesn't work. It was premature for them to remove the ultrasonic sensors. And I get these people saying, Brian, for 100 years, humans have driven with just these and they did fine. And I say, yeah, they also had 13-inch wheels with 6 inches of rubber on a 4-inch curb. That's fine. If I send my car out to Robotaxi and it comes back with curb rash all around, it's never going back out for Robotaxi, period. So humans are bad at parking without bumping into things. We had a solution. Well, I didn't want to name any names, Randy. We had a solution. We removed the solution. Elon has always said, if we're not adding things back in, we didn't cut enough things. You cut enough things, add them back. I did want to add a special bonus for you, Randy. I forgot to mention this on your show. There was a new feature on the Model 3 Highland that I hadn't seen discussed anywhere else. As you know, the stalks are gone.
Right.
You shift on the center console, you indicate with the left thumb. The blinkers for the left thumb are tactile now.
Yeah.
So they click. They click. Yeah. And my kids were checking out the Plaid, just sitting in it inside the showroom. And they said, where is the blinker? And they reached over and saw the thing and pressed the button. And he goes, oh, did I not get it? I go, nope, it's blinking. I expected it to click. I expected to hear and feel a click. So that is a small, subtle improvement.
Yeah.
But for me, getting used to the indicator was no problem. I mean, it took me no time at all. And again, the only real problem with that is the fact that they're doing it with the with roundabouts. Exiting roundabouts is a nightmare.
But how many times in the last 16 years or whatever it's been now, 17 years, how many times did Apple take away things and change the chords and change whatever, and every time it was, oh my gosh, this is going to ruin the, and every time people adapted. Shocking.
Yes. Apple is no Tesla. Apple doesn't remove things on a whim. Apple doesn't remove things with the plan to have to put some of them back. it's a very different philosophy. Apple is a lot more measured and cautious. And yeah,
What's fun? What's the fun in that, though? Come on, Brian.
I will tell you that not having a stock to change gears is dumb. It's just dumb. Having to change gears on the screen it's a very small hassle, but it's a pointless hassle. We're saving $5 a car. And I get it. 1 million cars is $5 million. Over 10 years, it's 50 million. It's dumb. We need, well, and remember the plan was it's going to shift on its own. It's going to just know when to shift.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they gave up on that immediately because it doesn't know when to shift. I've never seen one do it. So Randy, in conclusion, how are you feeling about the path to autonomy?
I am thinking,
And I don't mean just for Tesla. I mean generally.
just in general. Yeah, I think the path. First of all, I think that Tesla will solve it first. I think that Waymo will probably continue to be able to move into new markets, and they'll do their thing. I don't know if they'll ever be able to make money at it, so that's a whole nother issue. It looks like it would be very hard to figure out how they could make money at this. But I think Tesla will be clearly first. I was watching somebody, I forget whose video it was the other day, saying that that not as only is Tesla going to be first with autonomy. It was Pierre Ferragut. He said not only will they be first, they will be 10 years ahead of the competition. And he was suggesting that BYD might be the one that would be second, and BYD isn't even publicly working on it. That I've heard. Have you heard BYD publicly say they're working on it? I don't think so.
I'd looked it up at one point. I think they have a division. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I know there are a lot of companies in China that are very aggressively pushing for autonomy, just like there were here a few years ago. But until you crack it, it's not cracked. And yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Pierre is right, and I don't know. He's got more information, I'm sure, than I do. His idea was that they will just continue. That all the other companies that are not really doing it, they'll just continue to push more and more driver assist. Just make the driver assist better and better and better, but not go to full autonomy. And that's why Tesla will end up being the only one with it.
A lot of companies have scaled back their ambitions. You saw Ultra Cruise is dead. And they're going to, we're just going to have really good cruise control.
Right.
And if that's the level your competency is capable of rising to, by all means, please do stop there and perfect that. There's a very big market for just that. Yep. Let's get that done. Oh, Randy, I appreciate you hanging out with me. So, guys, like, subscribe, head over to the Randy Kirk Videos channel on the tubes of you and the X's. And everybody else, like, subscribe, do the usual. Stay tuned, stay juicy. I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on the Fupli Flop. Meh.